All right. Today, we're heading to a place that's, well, almost otherworldly. A place where faith is literally carved into stone, and history isn't just measured in centuries, but in millennia. We're diving deep into the story of Kedarnath, a temple that has faced down crushing glaciers and carries the weight of incredible ancient legends. There is a saying that just perfectly sums up this place. There is no easy path to Kedarnath. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? This is a journey that pushes you to your limits, physically and spiritually. It's a true pilgrimage to what feels like the very edge of the world.
So to really get a handle on Kedarnath, you've got to understand its location. And I don't just mean a pin on a map. We're talking about a place that sits right at the intersection of geography and, well, mythology.
The environment here is just extreme. Think about it. You're at over 11,000 feet. That's way above the tree line, often past where the snow never melts. And to even get there, the last 16 kilometers, that's all on foot. It's an intense trek. And this spot isn't just home to a temple, it's the very source of the Mandakini River. It's a place where you can feel the raw power of the elements all around you.
The history of this place is just staggering. It goes way, way back, mentioned in ancient texts like the Skanda Purana and even the Mahabharata. Then, in the 8th century, it was revived by the great philosopher Adi Shankaracharya. But here's the part that's just mind-blowing, and it comes from geologists. Scientists found evidence that this temple was completely buried under a glacier for about 400 years during the Little Ice Age, and the craziest part? It came out the other side, totally intact. It's just unbelievable.
So, the big question is, how on earth did it survive that? Well, the answer is in its incredible engineering. The builders used these enormous slabs of gray stone, and instead of mortar, they interlocked them, kind of like a giant heavy-duty puzzle. Then, they secured the whole thing with iron clamps. It was an absolutely ingenious design, built specifically to handle the crushing pressure of all that snow and ice. Okay, so we've talked about the building itself, but the story of Kedarnath is so much more than just stones and engineering. There's this foundational legend that explains why this temple is here, in this incredibly remote and, let's be honest, unforgiving place.
So the legend starts right after the epic war of the Mahabharata. The Pandava brothers, the victors, felt they needed to atone for all the bloodshed, so they went searching for Lord Shiva. But Shiva, well, he wasn't ready to forgive them just like that. To avoid them, he transformed himself into a bull and tried to hide. As he was burrowing into the earth to get away, one of the brothers, the powerful Bhima, managed to grab him by his hump, and at that moment, the bull's body reappeared, but in 5 separate pieces, scattered across the Himalayas. And those 5 spots became what's known as the Panch Kedar, the 5 sacred sites of Shiva. Each temple is dedicated to a different part of his bull form. And Kedarnath, which is considered the most important of them all, is where the hump appeared. It's believed that the Pandavas themselves built the very first temple right there.
Which brings us to the name itself, Kedarnath. It actually comes from 2 words, Kedara, which means field, and Nata, which means Lord. So put them together, and you literally get the Lord of the Field.
Now, you might be thinking, a field? Up here in the Himalayas, where pretty much nothing grows? Well, there's this beautiful explanation from an ancient text. It says the field isn't for growing crops, it's for growing the soul. The harvest you're looking for here is moksha, total spiritual liberation.
All right, let's step inside the temple's inner sanctum, because what's worshipped here is just as unique as its location and its history. So in most Hindu temples, the lingam, the symbol of Shiva, is something that's been carved by an artist, but not here. At Kedarnath, it's what's called Swayambhu, which means self-manifested. It's a natural, cone-shaped rock. It wasn't made by anyone. It's a sacred formation that was here long before the temple was ever built around it. And it's not small, either. We're talking about a rock that's about 3.6 meters high, and also 3.6 meters around. So think about that. This wasn't a case of placing an idol inside a temple. This was a case of building a temple to protect and shelter a sacred piece of the mountain itself. It's seen as the eternal, original form of Shiva. Okay, so we've got the place and we've got the deity. Now let's look at how the temple itself actually operates, because it's completely in sync with these wild, extreme seasons. The temple stands about 85 feet tall, and its main tower has this really strong, almost fortress-like look to it, and that's on purpose. It was designed to handle the insane weight of all the winter snow.
And interestingly, its entrance faces south. It's like a welcoming beacon for pilgrims making that long journey up from the plains of India, guiding them right into the heart of the Himalayas.
Because the climate is so harsh, the temple has this really strict annual cycle. It's only open for about 6 months a year, basically from spring through autumn. Once winter starts to set in, the symbolic idol of Shiva is carefully carried all the way down to a village called Ukimath. It stays there and is worshipped there all winter long until the snows finally melt and the mountain passes are clear again. And this rhythm, this ancient tradition, has just kept going for centuries. And this whole cycle, this annual move, it's not just a religious ritual. When you look closer, you see it reveals a much, much deeper connection between the temple and the natural rhythms of the entire region.
There's this absolutely fascinating link here between the sacred and the practical. The 6 months the temple's open, it lines up exactly with the farming and grazing season in the foothills down below. Think of it this way. When the high pastures are open for the animals, the high temple is open for pilgrims. And when the snows force everyone and everything to move down, the temple moves down too. Faith and survival are on the very same calendar.
And we really can't overstate how important Kedarnath is from an ecological standpoint. It's sitting right at the source of the Mandakini River, which in turn flows into the mighty Ganga. So the health of the snow up there, the timing of the big annual melt, all of that directly affects the water supply for literally hundreds of millions of people downstream. So you have to realize the community that has taken care of this temple for more than 1,000 years. They've also been incredible scientists in a way, just keen observers. Generation after generation, they've been watching the glaciers, tracking the snow, monitoring the rivers, and all this deep, deep knowledge about how the mountain behaves, it's all encoded right there in the temple's annual calendar. There is a quote that just sums this all up so perfectly. It says that all this accumulated knowledge, it's not just written down somewhere. It's in the architecture of the temple, in the calendar of its opening and closing, with the rhythm of the mountain year. The wisdom is the rhythm.
Okay, so first, let's just lay out the story of Kedarnath as most people know it. These are the facts that really set up the central mystery that we're about to unravel. So here are the things that we all hear about Kedarnath. It's the highest of the 12 great Shiva temples. It's one of the very few that faces south. It has this strict 6-month open, 6-month closed calendar, and it's built around a completely natural sacred stone. Oh, and it famously survived being buried under a glacier. Now, on their own, each one of these facts is pretty incredible, right? But as we're about to see, they're not unrelated at all. They're actually the keys to the entire system. So let's start the decoding with maybe the most basic choice the builders made, the temple's orientation. I mean, why on earth does it face south? The data here is crystal clear. The temple's bearing, 171.4 degrees, confirms it was deliberately built to face south. But the really critical number here, the one you need to pay attention to, is the latitude, 30.74 degrees north. Because at this specific spot on the planet, the sun never goes directly overhead or into the northern part of the sky. It stays in the southern half of the sky all year long. And this is where you can see the sheer genius of the design. See, at lower latitudes, temples usually face east to greet the rising sun. But up here, by facing south, the entrance is perfectly positioned to watch the sun's entire journey across the sky, every single day of the year. This wasn't just some random choice. It was a fundamental engineering decision, and it was based on pure celestial mechanics. So let's move on to the next piece of this puzzle. Let's see how that solar alignment turns the very architecture of the temple into, well, a highly sophisticated calendar made out of stone. So you have to ask, how can a stone building, sitting in one of the world's most extreme environments, act as a reliable calendar? How could it tell an entire community exactly when it's time to pack up and leave? Well, the answer is literally encoded in its proportions. The secret is baked right into the temple's measurements. The height of the main tower is about 25 meters. And get this, the total length of the temple is almost exactly the same. This perfect 1-to-1 ratio, it's no accident. It is the key to the entire mechanism. This height-to-length ratio turns the whole temple into a giant sundial. The tower acts as the gomen, the part that casts the shadow, and the temple floor itself acts as the dial. The building itself is the clock. And the way it works is incredibly simple but so robust. As the year goes on, the sun gets lower in the winter sky, and the tower's shadow gets longer and longer. Then, on one specific day, at high noon, the shadow from the very top of the tower just kisses the entrance threshold. That's it. It's a clear, unmistakable signal. Time's up. And this astronomical event happens every single year right around late October. It's an undeniable final warning. The safe season is over. It's time to close the temple and get down from the mountains before the winter snows make it impossible. So the temple's famous 6-month calendar isn't just tradition, it is written in stone and shadow. But hold on, the shadow calendar is just one part of this system. Let's look up at the tower again, at a special feature called the gallery, and let's decode its purpose as a specialized astronomical observatory. So you might be wondering, if they had a perfectly good shadow calendar, why did they need another instrument? Well, one word, weather. At this crazy altitude, the weather is notoriously unpredictable and often cloudy. A system that needs a clear midday sun to work just isn't reliable enough. They needed a more precise way to mark the start of the season. And this is where that gallery comes in. From its high, south-facing position, it was designed to see one main target, the star Canopus, known in India as Agastya. And as you can see from the data, it crosses the sky at a very, very low elevation, just 6.6 degrees above the horizon. Now, this isn't just any old star. For thousands of years, the appearance of Agastya in the sky after it's been invisible for a while has signaled the end of the monsoon rains. Its rising meant the skies were finally clearing, the rivers were calming down, and it was safe to travel again. At Kedarnath's latitude, trying to spot a star that low on the horizon is almost impossible from the ground. It'd be blocked by mountains, by haze, you name it. The gallery completely solves this problem. It's a purpose-built platform, lifting the observer high above the valley floor to give them the perfect, clear line of sight needed to spot Agastya. Seeing it was the astronomical confirmation. The monsoon is over, and the pilgrimage season can safely begin. Now, what's incredible is that the builders of Kedarnath didn't just construct their own instruments. They actually integrated the landscape itself right into their system. So let's look at two natural features they recognized were already doing a job. First, there's the sacred lingam itself, a natural conical rock. The thinking is, this wasn't a random stone, but was chosen because its faces might actually align with the sunrise on the solstices and equinoxes. And second is the Mandakini River, which gets its water directly from a glacier that flows right past the temple. And here's how the river works as an instrument. Its water level in the spring isn't random, it's a direct measurement of how much snow fell that winter. A high river meant a heavy winter, and that provided a crucial forecast for water resources for all the farms down in the plains in the coming season. Okay, so let's put this all together. These aren't just separate, interesting little quirks. They are all components of a single, coherent environmental monitoring system, perfectly adapted to its very unique location. The entire system is really designed to answer 3 critical questions you need to survive in the high Himalayas. The shadow calendar, which is literally built into the temple, answers, when is it safe to be here? The gallery, which is a star observatory, answers, are the skies clear? Is the monsoon done? And the river, a natural gauge, answers, how much water will we have for the year ahead? And what is truly remarkable is that this isn't just some historical theory. The ancient system still works. The traditions that kept these practices alive did so for a very good reason. To this day, the temple's opening and closing are still governed by this incredible solar and seasonal clock. And it leaves you with this one final, fascinating question. When we look at all the ancient monuments around the world, are we just seeing places of worship, or are we actually looking at complex, functional instruments whose purpose we just haven't figured out yet?